It's that time again, red and blue time, to look at how particular stories are told in completely different ways by the right and left-wing media. And then we look at what's actually reliable. We call it red news, blue news, and today's example is Obama versus Putin. Let me generalize here for a moment. If you've been watching a lot of MSNBC, you're probably pretty sure that Mr. Obama is showing strength in this case. He's a confident leader doing all the right things to blunt Putin's aggression in Ukraine. On the other hand, if you've been watching a lot of Fox News, you were probably pretty certain that Mr. Obama is a wimp who wears mom jeans. That's Sarah Palin's memorable phrase. And he all but cowers at the sight of the Russian president. Let's start on the right with Fox. This was Jeanine Pirro on her show a few weeks ago.
With all due respect, Mr. President, Putin is a pig, but he's been bitch-slapping you since the Edward Snowden mess. And speaking of perception, your Secret Service bozos passing out drunk in hotel hallways, traveling with you in Europe makes you look weak yet again. Do you think Putin's KGB guys would dare do something like that?
And Eric Bolling on the Fox show The Five offered, well, he would say compelling visual proof of what a weak leader Barack Obama is.
Leadership, I should just stop because a picture says 1,000 words. Watch.
Oh, my goodness.
Which one? Which one do you want leading your country?
I'm going with the bike. I'm going to go with the bike.
So, Eric, you like the shirtless guy?
I like the shirtless guy holding the rifle.
That was not Russia Today, that was Fox News. I know I don't have to tell you it was a completely different story over on left-leaning MSNBC. Listen to Ed Schultz from last month.
President Obama, I think, is playing this very close to the vest. I think the president is playing it exactly right. He has to. He's not jumping to any conclusions or jumping on the gun or anything like that. He's using diplomacy and sanctions and exhausting, I think, every diplomatic effort. It's the right thing to do.
So there's red news, there's blue news, and then there's the actual news. I've invited former State Department spokesman Jamie Rubin here to examine the propaganda about both leaders and get at the facts. Welcome, Jamie.
Nice to be with you.
Why do you think the press tends to boil these things down into caricatures?
Well, I think part of it is because it's easier to do that. Part of it is because both leaders would like this whole issue of Ukraine to be seen as a kind of single player operation where President Putin is making every decision all by himself, or where President Obama, for that matter, is making every decision by himself. I think it's more true on the Russian side. On the West, you know, the response is going to matter of the whole West European countries, of France, of Germany, of Britain, and the American people. One of the problems here is that the American public has tended to look inward, doesn't seem to care about what's going on in the rest of the world, let alone in places where you can't pronounce their names.
Is it a situation where the media can compel them to care, or where no amount of reporting from Ukraine will really result in engagement by the public?
Well, I think the media can compel people to care. It takes time. It takes compelling stories and doing the hard work of foreign correspondents on the ground, telling the story as it truly is. But after Iraq and Afghanistan, it's a fact that the country is tired. And I think where the criticism of President Obama is somewhat justified is that I think it's up to our president to convince the public, convince the West, unify Europe and the United States behind this seminal principle that big countries don't get to gobble up little countries. There's no more important principle in international affairs. I think all of us, the media, the Congress, and the president, need to do more to take this issue seriously, because there's no bigger issue in foreign affairs.
I've heard some drum beating from conservative media suggesting military action. I haven't heard a lot of that elsewhere. How much of that have you picked up on, and what do you make of some of that?
Well, I don't think there's any serious proposal for the United States to send troops into Ukraine to help Ukraine defend itself against
Right.
Russia.
Right.
I think conservatives, what they tend to do is to try to attack the president and imagine that if it was a Republican in office, things would be different. Let's remember, George Bush was president in 2008. And Vladimir Putin essentially invaded the country of Georgia, and the president didn't do much about it.
If both of the right and the left portrayals that we've been talking about are both incomplete or both wrong in some ways, which one does more damage in this case?
Well, I think I have a tough time. They're both pretty damaging. You know, on the right, I don't think it helps our country or our foreign policy or our security for the American president to be mocked and made fun of as if he hasn't shown great leadership on many issues over the last 6 years. Similarly, I don't think the left does us any favors by imagining that President Obama has played this perfectly. He obviously hasn't. Russia's leader has gone step after step. It's not as if Obama is responsible. On the contrary, Putin is responsible. But clearly there's a lot more that we in Washington and the West can do to make clear to Vladimir Putin that aggression doesn't pay. Right now, he hasn't seen that.
And since you consume as much of this media as anybody, you're married to CNN's own Christiane Amanpour, you know how the journalism world works. Give me an example of intelligent journalistic analysis of this issue. What do you seek out? What do you read? What do you watch?
Well, I think in the last 24 hours, I'll give you a good example. The Financial Times did a huge piece about the propaganda war that Vladimir Putin is undertaking, which taught me quite a few things about what's going on there. They're rewriting their textbooks. They are eliminating any alternative views to Putinism. They're creating a kind of Mussolini-like state, not fascism as it was in the 40s, but the idea that the few people get to decide what happens to a vast empire, are able to steal billions of dollars from the state, and are able to rewrite textbooks and tell a truth, what we used to call back in the World War II days, a big lie. The FT, I think it did a very good job in that case.
Jamie Rubin, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome.